The final total was
7,381.
That is unreal. Sets us up so well for the next few years.
This season of Gold Rush caught everyone off guard. For Parker Schnabel, it turned into the most unpredictable, intense, and electrifying chapter of his career so far. No one expected what was about to unfold. A comeback of this scale seemed impossible, yet week after week, the gold just kept stacking up. Gold readings soared. Nuggets lit up the cleanup tables. Even the most seasoned crew members were left speechless. Few would have believed Parker could pull nearly $14 million worth of gold in a single season, all while carrying the full weight of leadership. And the pressure never let up. Fuel prices climbed, machines broke down non-stop, and mining cuts threatened to collapse without warning. On top of that, Tony Beats's aggressive expansion and looming government inspections hung over the operation like a storm cloud. One wrong move could have shut everything down. But Parker pushed forward, steering through the chaos with grit and focus. Just when the season seemed on the edge of disaster, another rich gold zone would appear, flipping everything on its head. The tension was relentless. No one could predict where the next strike would come from. Some weeks delivered 250 ounces. Others pushed past 300. At times, the numbers were so wild that Parker blurted out, "Guys, this doesn't make sense. Something big is happening." That moment summed up the entire season. And when the final total landed at $14 million in gold, the mining world was stunned. Fans online called it one of Parker's greatest seasons ever. One thing was clear. Anyone who wasn't paying attention was about to miss history in the making. The story wasn't over, it was just getting started. And what came next had the power to redefine the gold rush entirely. From the very first week, Parker's crew stumbled onto something extraordinary. Initial survey readings from a new cut site were unlike anything they'd seen before. Typically, early scans show modest results. This time, the charts spiked instantly. The crew exchanged stunned looks. Even Parker was caught off guard. Signals this strong, this early, were almost unheard of. AI-driven ground mapping had flagged the area as promising, but no one expected the data to be this precise. Drone footage and ground-penetrating radar revealed dense pockets buried just beneath the surface, as if thick veins of gold were waiting to be uncovered. The crew geologist summed it up perfectly. This wasn't normal. It looked like gold from an entirely different layer. Parker's reaction said it all: equal parts excitement, confusion, and cautious optimism. There was always the fear of a false signal. But that doubt vanished the moment the soil samples were laid out. Tiny gold flakes shimmered in the sunlight. The crew erupted. Some whistled, others stood in silent disbelief. Parker simply said, "If it looks this good on the surface, imagine what's deeper." That moment changed everything. Machines roared to life. Production doubled. The thrill of the old gold rush returned as crews pushed into the next layer. Parker knew this zone could define the entire season. Something massive was hiding below. Of course, nothing that big comes easy. Nature soon fought back. Heavy rains flooded the cut Parker had staked everything on. The ground became unstable. One morning, the west wall gave way without warning, forcing a bulldozer operator to jump clear just in time. Breakdowns followed one after another. Hydraulic lines burst. Wash plants clogged. Trucks slid helplessly through thick mud. Frustration boiled over. Over the radio, Parker snapped, saying they couldn't afford to slow down. Not now. If they lost momentum, the entire season could collapse. Tension spread through the crew. Doubts crept in. Some whispered that this might be Parker's toughest year yet. Even with extra pumps running non-stop, mud continued choking the equipment. Days dragged by with barely any gold hitting the tables. The pressure showed on Parker's face. It was a silent fight, one that could end everything if they didn't push through. Meanwhile, Tony Beats was making waves. Word spread that he'd expanded into 3 new sites, with machines running full throttle. His early cleanups were already turning heads. Online chatter crowned Tony the season's frontrunner. The rivalry went beyond ounces. It was about pride, legacy, and dominance in the Yukon. Tony's next move made things worse, securing high-grade land leases. The message was clear. Parker needed to respond or risk losing his crown. Night after night, Parker climbed into the machines himself, pushing production to its limits. Side-by-side cleanups turned every episode into a tense showdown between two mining giants. This season was a full-blown roller coaster, setbacks, rivalries, and jaw-dropping discoveries. But one thing never changed. Parker wasn't just mining gold. He was carving his name into history. Many viewers were convinced Tony would steamroll the season, and that looming question, would Parker survive or crash, kept the stakes sky high. Parker was fighting on two fronts. On one side, collapsing cuts, failing machines, and a worn-down crew. On the other, Tony's relentless pace. Fans started wondering if this would finally be the year Parker lost everything. But the real story was only beginning. Then came the first major cleanup, and it stunned everyone. After weeks of setbacks, breakdowns, and doubt, Parker decided it was time for a full-scale wash. The crew braced for disappointment, fearing the mud and delays had ruined their chances at a big haul. As the slurry flowed across the gold mats, the first flakes began to shine. The room went silent. Eyes widened. Smiles slowly spread. The numbers climbed. 100 ounces, then 150, then 220. When the scale hit 302 ounces, the crew froze. Some grabbed their heads. Others stared at the cameras in disbelief. A few whispered that it was unreal. Parker's face shifted from shock to quiet relief. Purity tests came back at 91%, exceptionally high for the Yukon. That single cleanup was worth roughly $600,000. In that moment, everything changed. Energy returned. Confidence surged. Parker knew this wasn't just a good cleanup. It was the turning point that could reshape the entire season. The machines were worn down. The crew was exhausted. But the ground had delivered a message, and it was loud and clear. At one point, Parker stood quietly, staring at the gold gleaming on the table. After a long pause, he said, "If the first major cleanup looks like this, imagine what's still buried below." That single line sent a jolt through the camp, reigniting belief that something massive was waiting underground. The very next day, the survey team ran another set of ground-penetrating radar scans closer to bedrock. Parker was hoping for good news, but what appeared on the screen exceeded every expectation. One area lit up unlike anything they had seen all season, a dense, oval-shaped zone filled with heavy, almost unreadable signals. As the depth settings were adjusted, the readings grew even stronger. The geologist lowered his voice and said it was one of the most powerful signals they'd recorded all year. Parker pointed at the monitor and replied quietly, "Signals like this don't happen by accident. Something big is down there." The crew stood frozen between excitement and unease. Some thought it might be a solid gold vein. Others whispered about a massive pocket that hadn't been touched in decades. When the AI mapping software finished processing the data and generated a 3D model, a chill ran through the room. Bright, dense shapes appeared beneath the bedrock, dozens of them. Parker knew instantly this wasn't a normal pay zone. Only a thick, continuous deposit could produce readings like that. Disbelief quickly turned into renewed confidence. Even with Tony's pressure looming in the background, the energy shifted. Something extraordinary was coming. That's when Parker made his boldest decision of the season, the double-cut strategy. With walls collapsing and machines failing, he chose to push 2 cuts at the same time, a risk most miners would never take. The move doubled expenses, doubled danger, and stretched the crew to their limits. But Parker had one goal in mind. If the jackpot was hiding beneath that high signal zone, they had to reach it fast. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If both cuts failed, the entire season could unravel. Fuel was burning fast, parts were running out, and exhaustion was everywhere. Still, Parker's determination pulled the crew together. He told them the risk was huge, but the payoff could be even bigger. The team split in 2. One crew pushed deeper into the upper cut, while the other carefully worked along the unstable west wall. Shifts grew longer. Nights stretched on. Parker climbed into an excavator himself, working late into the darkness, running the season on sheer will. Then everything changed. The east cut finally broke into the hidden zone. At first, the buckets looked ordinary. But one evening, an excavator load shimmered in a way no one expected. At first, they brushed it off as luck. But once it was washed, thick gold particles burst into view, catching the sunlight. Parker grabbed a handful of dirt, rubbed it between his fingers, and said, "Guys, we just found something insane." Excitement surged through the crew. Months of struggle were finally paying off. As the cut expanded, a thick gold-rich streak appeared along the wall. Soil tests confirmed concentrations far beyond anything they'd seen before. The geologist didn't hesitate. He told Parker this was high-grade material, exactly the kind of discovery that could flip the entire season. It felt like a movie moment. The crew shouted and celebrated while cameras rolled. Parker stood back, taking it all in, smiling quietly. His risky double-cut gamble was paying off. Machines roared at full speed. Both crews joined forces to chase the rich pay layer. Every cleanup raised the stakes even higher. The suspense was unbearable. If the layer was this rich, what else could be hiding deeper? Then the cleanup started exploding. The first haul came in at 250 ounces. Energy flooded the camp. Purity was strong. The value approached $500,000. Parker nodded and said, "Good start. Keep moving." But that was only the beginning. The next cleanup delivered 280 ounces. For a moment, no one spoke. The crew struggled to comprehend how numbers this massive kept appearing week after week. Even Parker admitted he'd never seen growth like this. That haul alone was worth roughly $560,000, over $1 million in gold in just 2 weeks. By week 3, the camp felt transformed. A single cleanup hit 320 ounces. Hands trembled as gold was weighed. The tables gleamed so brightly the camera crew had to adjust their lenses. That batch was worth around $640,000. Crew members hugged each other. Parker shook his head with a grin and said, "This is crazy, but we're not slowing down." Week 4 dipped slightly, but the results were still staggering at 290 ounces. By mid-season, Parker had already pulled in roughly 1,140 ounces, nearly $4.5 million in gold. Production crews couldn't stop saying viewers wouldn't believe what they were seeing. Across the Yukon, miners compared numbers, fans celebrated online, and Parker's run was being called unstoppable. But Parker knew better. When gold flows this fast, problems usually follow, and trouble arrived the very next week. 3 government vehicles rolled into camp without warning. No one knew if it was routine or something far worse. Inspectors immediately asked for paperwork, claims, water usage records, environmental reports, and compliance documents. Tension gripped the camp like a tightening vice. Parker walked them through the site, worry clear on his face. A shutdown could wipe out everything: the crew, the machines, and millions in gold. Quiet whispers spread among the team. If a red flag was raised, it could all be over. Inspectors scrutinized every detail: the wash plant, water systems, fuel storage, drainage. They checked and rechecked everything. One inspector pointed out an unstable section of the east cut, suggesting it might be unsafe to continue mining there. The crew's faces fell. If that area was shut down, reaching the richest layer could become impossible. Parker knew he was walking a razor-thin line. Millions of dollars waited underground. But one failed inspection could end the season in an instant. The inspection dragged on for 4 long, nerve-wracking hours. Machines sat silent. Even the production crew stopped filming, waiting anxiously. When the inspectors finally drove away, Parker let out a deep breath. They had dodged trouble, for now, but he knew it wasn't over. That night, Parker sat alone by the campfire. The air was cold, his thoughts heavier than ever. Worn out and frustrated, he picked up a handful of dirt, letting it fall through his fingers. Quietly, he said that the work was endless, the risks enormous, and the pressure coming from every direction. After a long pause, he straightened up and stared into the darkness. Then he said firmly, "I didn't come here to lose." It wasn't just motivation, it was a statement of intent. When a few crew members joined him, Parker spoke again, this time with fire. He told them that problems weren't enemies, they were tests. If they cracked, the season was over. If they stood strong, the season would belong to them. The crew responded with silent nods. Everyone understood. From that moment on, everything changed. Machines roared back to life. Double shifts became the norm. No one said it out loud, but each person made the same promise: to push through, no matter what. That night wasn't a breaking point. It was a rebirth. Just days later, the biggest cleanup of the season arrived. The East Cut exploded with color. Gold flashed in nearly every bucket as the hidden streak revealed itself fully. Crew members exchanged stunned looks. If the buckets looked this rich, the cleanup was going to be unreal. When cleanup day arrived, the energy was electric. Mats were laid out, water pressure cranked up, and as washing began, gold poured out in shocking amounts. Faces froze in disbelief. Trays overflowed. The scale climbed. 100 ounces, 200, 350, then 420, and it still wasn't done. The final count hit 530 ounces. For a split second, there was silence. Then the camp erupted. Cheers, laughter, applause. Purity tested between 90 and 91%, making it roughly a $1 million week. Parker leaned back, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath, as if months of weight finally lifted off his shoulders. Some crew members smiled through tears. This wasn't just gold, it was the ultimate comeback. Parker summed it up simply: "This is why we don't quit." In that moment, it was clear. He wasn't just mining gold, he was making history. The impact was immediate. News of the $1 million cleanup spread fast, sending shockwaves through the Yukon. Fans were split. Some declared Parker unstoppable. Others insisted Tony Beats would still take the crown. The rivalry intensified. Side-by-side footage of Parker and Tony fueled the tension. Tony brushed it off, saying he'd found good ground too, and that real miners win through consistency. His crew reacted with a mix of respect and skepticism. Online, the debate exploded. Social media lit up with arguments, predictions, and endless comparisons. Against all odds, Parker had done the impossible. He reclaimed his throne. Tony may have been fast, but Parker proved he was still the king of the Yukon. Viewers felt like they were watching a silent war, each cleanup landing like a punch in a heavyweight fight. The rivalry was at its peak, but the season's true climax still lay ahead. The final month turned into an all-out battle. Machines ran non-stop. Fatigue hit hard. Double shifts, endless digging, and relentless pressure became the only way to chase the $14 million goal. Excavators thundered day and night. Fumes filled the camp. Crew members collapsed during breaks, grabbing sleep wherever they could. But no one walked away. Parker's campfire speech kept them going. But the harder they pushed, the more obstacles appeared. The wash plant clogged again and again. Hydraulic pumps overheated. One night, an excavator track snapped, shutting everything down for hours. Tension spiked. If the breakdowns continued, the $14 million target could slip away. Parker jumped back into the machines himself, toolbox in hand, fixing problems side by side with the mechanics. The suspense was unbearable. Could they hold the pace to the finish? Every day became a race against time, failing equipment, and Tony Beats's relentless progress. Still, Parker stayed focused on the jackpot zone, the ground that had turned everything around and promised the ultimate payoff. Then came the final weigh-in. The entire camp gathered. Crew members, drivers, mechanics, camera operators, everyone wanted to witness the moment. As trays of gold were weighed, the numbers climbed fast. 200 ounces, 400, 700. Then the last tray tipped the scale. The final season total, over 6,800 ounces of gold, worth nearly $14 million. Purity averaged an astonishing 90 to 92%. The camp erupted. Shouts, tears, dancing atop machines. Every crew member celebrated in their own way. Parker stood silently for a moment, staring at the glowing trays, disbelief and pride written across his face. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, "If this is what we found this season, imagine what's still out there." The camp fell quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. The story wasn't finished. This was only the beginning. And if you don't want to miss what comes next, make sure to subscribe to the Timefold and hit like to stay part of the journey.